here we are.
Another day to verse the findings of the human dynamic. And I think just to begin with, just acknowledging the value in what we're doing right now. I find such great value in just contemplating our own consciousness, just contemplating our own interactions with life and the world and each other and other people and other humans, and just taking some time to just drop in and just reflect, in a way on what it's like to live life as a human, and just acknowledge that that's like, and not take that for granted, and just really look at it. And it's like,
and in this process of acknowledging this, we become more aware. Like doing this helps me to become more aware of my day-to-day life.
Totally.
The talks that we have and going deep like this, it's such beautiful medicine.
I mean, you learn so much about yourself. I've found in just on my own, just kind of opening the channel sort of to just speak in a way intuitively about something of depth. In a way, it's been so valuable for me because it pulls things out of you. It pulls things out of me that I believe in or don't believe in or need to look at, or aspects of myself that are habitual, and then having another perspective is really wonderful too. That's been great medicine for me also, is to have another like relay and another we learn from each other,
Yeah.
and if we meet in a way that in the mood of expanding our consciousness and coming to ultimately truth, I think, in whatever that means, of perception. Is really what I'm looking for.
We'll speak deeper on this.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to unravel like what parts of my own, but parts of human consciousness that habitually cover up what's real with desire. Ultimately, is what I've found that it ultimately ends up being. Is our desires to accomplish things and our desires to please our senses, end up kind of covering up what the actual reality of life is.
And they become our habits.
And they become our habits, and they become our perception. It's like, it's almost like, as an example, if our mental habits are like sunglasses,
Absolutely.
say like blue sunglasses, and we see through blue, and we wear them for so long we don't realize that the world actually isn't blue. That's just this lens that we've put over our eyes, over our perception, that distorts it in a way. And it's not until we take it off that we realize that they were even on. So that's what this really is.
That's yes, that's it. That was beautiful.
Yeah. So maybe we'll try and, that's very broad, so maybe we'll try and steer this. What we were talking about earlier today was kind of about boundaries, right? I know it's like your favorite, one of your favorite subjects.
I love boundaries.
But it's really great though. And far as, this is what it was. It was the balance with, especially when it comes to human interaction, right? Of honoring ourselves, but also serving others when they need it. So honoring our own needs to a degree, and really doing what we like, doing things that we enjoy doing, and also setting boundaries for not doing things that we don't want to do.
Right.
But with a balance of like, there's going to be times where there's things that we don't need to do that we have to do.
Right. Right. Before we get all into that, let's just take a look at serving yourself and serving others.
Yeah, cool.
I think they're so directly linked, because if you're not serving yourself and honoring yourself, then how can you truly show up for and serve anyone else, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so right there is like to be able to serve others, we need to be serving ourselves.
Yeah, totally. You can't give something you don't have.
Right.
Right. We can look at it that way too. Where, yeah.
So now we can touch on balancing
okay.
those and what that looks like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to say that.
Sure. Yeah. I know, for just to testify a little bit, I spent so much time in an unhealthy way concerned about other people's needs over my own, to the degree where I deprived myself of you know, one, for me, speaking up when somebody was demanding something of me that wasn't healthy for me, or that I didn't have the energy for, or whatever it was, and end up becoming depleted for it. That's a version of an imbalance.
Yes.
In that, of like, I'm helping people, but I'm deteriorating because of that. So that's something to really pay attention to. And a lot of this, I think, is going to come down to like really just tuning in with your own energy, with your own body, and how you feel in whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm. Like if you feel energetically depleted,
Yeah.
then you know that this is not serving you.
Right. Right. That's a good way to look
And
at
if
it.
you feel energetic and happy by doing the service afterwards, and while, but afterwards is a big one, you know?
Big one, yeah.
Because as we shift into serving others, for me, I've started doing little things that I normally wouldn't think to do, or just like would be too lazy to kind of put that energy into it. But in a way, serving in this way, like cleaning up and doing my family's dinner's dishes, you know, like that simple task, but doing it, and doing it with the attitude of thank you, you know, of gratitude. You feel so much joy and energy afterwards.
I think what you just touched on there is a key and vital element of it, because the presence that you have while doing it is really the most important part, because that's what it's going to end up making you feel depleted. Is if you're for example, if you're doing dishes and you're sitting there thinking to yourself how much you hate the dishes, or this isn't my job, this isn't my responsibility, that's what's going to deplete you.
Right.
Is that presence. But a presence that's going to uplift you and make you feel good inside and make you feel love inside is the presence of gratitude, or even just feeling good about helping others. You know, that's going to be something that again will do the opposite. It'll energize you. You know, because true selfless service is energizing, is uplifting. It should make you feel good. Now, selfish service is kind of what I just talked about, of like doing something for like, you do something good for somebody for satisfaction. So when you tell the story to someone later, you feel like you get a pat on the back, or you feel good, or it satisfies the ego in a way. I think this is something that's really important. So how you show up for whatever the task is. Let's say the task is helping somebody do the dishes. How you show up for that. If you're going to be angry about it, don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't bother. Shift your presence inside and then do it if it lines up. And if you're truly just like need some time to sit on the couch and relax and rest, then honor that.
Yeah,
And take
absolutely.
that
Exactly.
time. Yeah.
Yes, and that's where the balance is.
Yes.
You know, knowing when you have the energy to show up in a positive, grateful way, and when that would be depleting for you. And so becoming aware of that within yourself when doing that, but also having like respect for you and your boundaries, creating specific boundaries for yourself when dealing with anything that has to do with you, really, and then relationships as well. You know, something that I've done is just give so much in my relationships, like you were saying as well. and I'm learning how to gracefully put up boundaries.
Yep.
Whereas before I would have felt so much guilt for putting up necessary boundaries. And now I'm honoring, respecting myself so much that I can do that in a graceful way and not feel bad about it, and am given respect and understanding in return.
Yeah.
No questions.
Yeah.
It's an amazing shift.
Yeah, and I think too, something that I've noticed also is how you feel inside when you express your boundaries is really important too. So if you express your boundaries out of frustration, for example, of like, I never fucking stand up for myself, and you're coming at it like that,
Oh my gosh.
whoever's
yes.
receiving it is gonna feel that. But if you come up like feeling really good about it, feeling empowered to set up some boundaries with somebody, the person's gonna feel that, and it demands respect. Just the energy will demand them to respect you. They won't even know why they're having so much respect for you setting up boundaries, but it's because of your presence inside. So this kind of feels like a common theme or a common thread throughout this conversation just thus far, as far as, so your inner experience is really what's really important, and what you express out of in any action. So if you're expressing to someone, invites you to their birthday party, it's something, you're going to a bar and you just quit drinking and you're like, it's really just not a good place for you to go, but you love the person, you gotta say, you know what, set up some healthy boundaries, say, I love you so much, maybe we can find another thing to do, but I just don't feel comfortable going to that kind of scene. That's at least where I'm at right now. And instead of putting yourself in that situation, feeling uncomfortable, or just not even having a good time because it's just not your scene anymore.
Right, or saying that you can go and then canceling last second because you're like, fuck, I don't know. And they would appreciate it more if you had just said no in the beginning.
And just honor yourself from the start. So
Right.
So noticing the feelings as they come up quickly, like as they come up, acknowledging them as they, instead of just pushing them away and saying, "Oh, I need to find out a way
Yes.
to not talk about that."
Yes, and before communicating it, you can take a moment with yourself and notice what has come up, and even like have a conversation within yourself and ask yourself, "Oh, okay, this feeling's coming up. This may mean that I don't want to do this," and just taking a moment for yourself, and then you can create space to communicate in a beautiful way. Because depending on what it is that's going up that you need to express these boundaries, whether that could come up kind of like harshly, like you were saying before communicating, really create space within yourself. So then communication is so important.
Totally.
And when we communicate from this space of presence and understanding, that's what we're going to be given back.
And ultimately, love for yourself. When you are doing something out of love for yourself, it's easier for it to be received. Not that it always will be. There'll probably be plenty of times where it won't be received. But who cares? I mean, that's something that's a boundary you got to set. You don't have to care about whether somebody receives you or not. That's their thing.
Because that will give you confidence to speak up for yourself.
100%.
No matter what they have to say in return, this is what I need for myself.
And you'll know who really cares about you when that kind of stuff goes.
Yes.
I wanted to acknowledge too a really great thing that I think comes up with what you said, like taking a moment for yourself to explore the feelings that might be coming up, because another aspect of this is it coming up because you have anxiety and you're feeling antisocial, which would be a good place to step out of your comfort zone. In some degrees, not all cases, but in some situations, it's good to step out of something to do something you don't want to do, because it might serve you and help you shed off some conditioning or shed off some fears or anxieties by putting yourself in that kind of situation, just doing it anyway. Because I've talked to people with severe anxiety who have started to overcome it, and one of the things, it was a good friend of mine said, I get terrified in most situations, but I just do it anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean?
This is a practice that I'm embodying right now as well.
Awesome.
All the things that I'm kind of scared to do or that are out of my comfort zone that I know, so there's a feeling inside that you know you should do this.
Yeah.
You know that this
Yeah.
is going to be good for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I get that feeling and I'm trying to walk the other way, I'm like, nope, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I truly believe when you take that moment to look within, take a little space, you'll know the difference.
That's fun. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about the different feelings, and maybe if we'll try. I don't know if it's possible, but we'll see if we can describe what those feelings are, because I can definitely relate in the sense of like I remember being afraid to travel alone. You know, that was a fear that I had, was traveling by myself. For no rational reason at all. I was very confident and capable of doing things, but when I first traveled out of the country, you know, I did it on purpose alone, because I knew that I had anxieties towards it. And like, not crushing anxieties, but like basic anxieties of like, oh, what if I lose my plane ticket, you know, or what if I lose my passport, you know, or whatever it is. Just silly little things that are easily resolved, you know, would keep me from doing something, you know. So when I got the inspiration to travel, I said, I'm doing this for multiple reasons. One, I want to go someplace cool and enjoy my life. Also, I want to break out of this little anxiety that I have that keeps me from doing things that are really good for me. And now a few things happen. One, you might get rid of the anxiety and it might not exist anymore, or you develop a relationship with your anxiety where the anxiety might still show up, it might still be there, but now you've created the habit of doing things anyway. Anything you want to add to that?
You constantly are kind of reminding your anxiety that it's okay. You know,
Nice.
that like relationship.
I like that.
That's what that reminded me of. Yeah, I can totally relate to everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's nice because you honor the feelings at the same time when you do that. You like just anxiety, as just to continue with that example, is you're not like shaming yourself for having those feelings. You're honoring those feelings and almost empowering yourself by saying, it's okay if this stuff is here, you know. And this can go with any feeling, you know. This conversation can really open up to something really big, as far as dealing with even anger and depression and jealousy and all that kind of stuff too, and
where fear comes from, even specific things we're so fearful of and don't want to step into. Looking at maybe what goes deeper and why we fear those things, and that's why it's so empowering to step into it, because then you get to like dig this fear up and expose it. And so now you are dancing with your fear, you know, and becoming friends with your fear now. And it's such an empowering thing to do for yourself, because in a way that's honoring yourself. That is honoring yourself.
Totally, 100%.
And getting to know yourself in a whole new way.
Now, how can we maybe offer, like, how do you know when something's good for you and when something's, like, when fear can show up because of an irrational anxiety, or fear can show up as a signal of like, that's dangerous, don't do it. Is there a way to kind of, because it's definitely a different feeling.
I think that's getting to know your habits and becoming aware of yourself.
Okay.
I think once you begin to build awareness within yourself, you get to, you can differentiate between the two. You know?
It's intuitive.
It is very intuitive.
Yeah.
But okay, let's take awareness away and say that you don't know the difference.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Where do we go?
Awareness.
I guess
Build awareness.
Build awareness.
No, what do you think?
I think,
Feeling.
like you touched on it before, of trying some things that you know are safe, obviously, not putting yourself in any unsafe situations, but trying things and see how you feel after. Like you mentioned earlier, that afterwards, when you help someone, you feel good if you did it in a certain like mood. Noticing how you feel. Like I remember one time I tested this. I was terrified to like go on the subway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
An irrational fear, but I had a fear of doing it. I was just afraid of going on the subway for no particular reason, and again, knowing that I'm capable of, but it was enough there to like keep you from doing it.
Yeah, I have a really good life experience
Okay.
that will put this into perspective. So,
Sure.
nude modeling. That was like my biggest fear. I did not have a good relationship with my body. I hated my body, and then I needed money. I was actually in St. Pete, and didn't have any money, and someone offered me a job to do nude modeling at my college. And they would pay me like $20 an hour, and it was for a photography class. So a bunch of students just taking a bunch of pictures of me naked.
Wow.
And I was like, oh well, I need the money, and I did it. And I actually felt really good during as well. But before, I was definitely filled with anxiety and fear. And if I wasn't getting paid, I probably wouldn't have done it. But it led to so much growth, empowerment, and allowed me to love my body in a way that I've never experienced before.
Wow.
Yeah, so I continued doing it, and it continued. It was always difficult. It actually got more difficult too, because my body is constantly changing.
Yeah.
And so certain shoots, I would be like, I wouldn't even want to look at the photos, you know, but I would do it anyway, and I've continued doing it since then, and it's healed the relationship between my body and I.
It's amazing. I love this because you're speaking to really allowing, because that's like medicine for you, you know? So really allowing yourself to accept really what you need, even if it's like a little unorthodox or if it's not socially accepted. You know what I mean? And just allowing yourself to, whatever's going to help you really more step into a place of ultimately loving yourself more, but also shedding some of these like little places where we put ourselves down and don't honor ourselves, you know?
Right, because that was something on top of not having a good relationship with my body, but I grew up in a religious home, and the way that society perceives nude modeling and all of this stigma that comes along with doing this, which is just allowing me to love myself more deeply. You know, so really stepping into your power and choosing what's right for you, even if there may be judgment, you know. Yeah.
Even if it makes people hate you, you know what I mean? That's something. There was a quote that came through during one of our conversations was, do you love yourself enough to allow yourself to be hated?
Ooh.
Do you love yourself enough to allow yourself to be hated?
Absolutely, I do.
Boom. That was really powerful medicine for me. That came through for me when I was noticing how often I'm people pleasing, and how often I'm, not speaking up for myself, or not disagreeing with something when I do disagree, and not saying it because I don't want to have an argument. You know what I mean? Because I remember for me growing up, even a simple disagreement was like the end of the world. You know, it was like you're a terrible person for disagreeing with somebody else, which is a ridiculous thing. You know, we should disagree all the time and discuss why, and be able to do so gently and in a loving way. You know, it's okay to disagree with people. But for me, that was something that I really had to break out of, and still continue to do that kind of work, is speaking up if I disagree and not lying.
Yeah.
You know, and agreeing with something that I don't agree with. You know what I mean? That was another area of setting a boundary with myself and saying, we're not going to lie anymore. You know, we're not going to just say things that make people feel good about themselves when I'm lying inside. You know, that was a big thing for me. So, do you love yourself enough to allow yourself to be hated? That was a big one for me.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure. Thank you for sharing.
Of course. So back to feeling.
Yeah, I'd really like to get as clear on that as we possibly can. Again, like we said, it's definitely a very intuitive experience. And in the beginning, like we were saying too, is focusing on how you feel. You should feel empowered and energized after you do something. After you step out of your comfort zone, you should feel empowered and energized
Right,
afterwards.
and it may not be immediately after.
No.
You know, because that can be a lot of energy just to do something that you are fearful of, but just be aware of how you feel even within the next few days after too.
Cool. Yeah. So give it some time to really settle in, and if you'd be like, wow, you know what? In looking back on that, that was what I needed to do. That was the right thing to do. You know, and then focus on the feelings that led to it. Focus on the feelings within it, because I feel like, because I know my relationship now with stepping out of the comfort zone is very different than it was earlier. So now it's empowering from in the beginning, even stepping in and saying, all right, I'm gonna fly to another country.
Yes, it becomes.
It feels good in the moment too. It's
Right.
like, wow, because you have this relationship with your anxiety, with your feelings, with your
Because
fears.
you're building new habits.
Yeah.
And so now the whole way about going this feels good.
Yeah.
Because you've created the habit of, yes, this is good for me.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And even the mind starts to like it. The mind, where all the trouble is, that creates all the anxiety and the fear. Even the mind starts to enjoy it, which is really, really neat experience. You know, and the whole thing starts to shift. Your whole life starts to shift. You know, and you start opening up to the whole world that's around you, and you start really living. You know what I mean? Because you're repressing yourself by allowing your fears, or really any energy, to govern your life.
So this whole conversation, this is beautiful. We covered boundaries and stepping out of your comfort zone.
Self-love, empowerment.
Yeah. Wow. Serving yourself and serving others. This has really been beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to ask for you to give me one takeaway
From this.
from you. Yeah.
Sure.
I'd like to hear that from you.
Yeah.
Just to almost like wrap it up.
Yeah. We can do that for sure. So, kind of a breakdown of, we have the necessity, the priority to make sure that we're always honoring ourselves, even if we're honoring others. Right? So making sure that the way that we're showing up is in alignment with our needs, you know, and that has nothing to do with what we want to do. Right? I may not want to do the dishes right now, but my mother may be really stressed out and needs some help, and that makes me feel good, better than it does to like be lazy and rest. Makes me feel better and empowered to help somebody when they're really, really in need, if I have the ability to show up that way.
Right. Then you have the choice to go about it in a loving, grateful way.
Yeah.
And can enjoy the process of serving someone.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so in return, it serves you.
Ultimately, that's exactly. It should be a healthy cycle of giving and receiving. You receive by giving.
Right.
When you do it in the right mood. So there's that is a big takeaway, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's also really tuning in and tapping into your own feelings, and what are feelings that are healthy signs to keep you out of danger, and what are feelings that are irrational fears that keep you from doing things that are good for you.
So we definitely touched on the irrational fears, but how do you know when something is not good for you?
Awesome. So you probably have some good insight on this, because you've lived in some. I have too. Lived in some areas where, for example, you know, a homeless guy comes up to you asking for money, or cigarettes, or something like that, right? There's moments where I can feel the presence of them, and I'm like, I'm going to give this person a couple dollars. You know what I mean? And there's other moments where I'm like, I need to not even let this person anywhere near me. It's just a feeling.
It really is, yeah.
And I can't really describe how to discern that. You really have to feel the person's presence. So this may be something, maybe go into tapping into just your receivers of energy, and just start picking up in safe environments where, you know, I'm sitting next to you right now. Let me see if I can tap into how you're feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're not feeling anxious. You feel very comfortable and good. You know what I mean? But just opening yourself up to like this other level of sense that we have. That everybody has a sense of empathy to a degree.
A big one when dealing with strangers, let's say, or just people. Their body language can tell you a lot too. Yeah.
Nice.
So tapping in energetically, but also noticing their body language is really big, and that comes with some practice.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good one.
But really observing their physical presence as well as their energetic presence. I think both are really important. And also even the way that they speak to you. So if that you can feel their energetics from the way that they speak to you. You know, even if they're speaking something nice and kind, you can hear in their voice their real intention if you're really present and listening and aware and observing the other things.
Wow. Beautiful, thank you. That's really, that gives a little bit of, practical perception on that very subtle aspect of intuition. So that was really good, thank you. I think ultimately what this kind of thing comes down to is really just tuning into yourself, tuning into your own interpretation of life, in all of it, you know, and tapping into your feelings that come up in any given moment and what they are. That's kind of like a base or foundation of this conversation in general, because we talked about it with doing the dishes, we talked about it with interacting with strangers, even you know, when we set ourselves up for experiences in life, like traveling, like that example. Ultimately, it really kind of all boils down to what's arising within us inside.
I just want to touch really quick on boundaries.
Please, yeah.
When we're speaking about boundaries, I think something important to note is that you really don't owe anyone anything. You know, so if a stranger comes up to you and is trying to get your attention, and you don't have a good feeling about them energetically or whatever, you don't need a reason just to ignore them and keep walking.
Awesome.
You know, I just wanted to put that out there because that's a big one for a lot of women. Well, just from my experience, that we feel obligated, especially being in the city, we feel obligated almost to answer someone who's just calling out to us, who, you know, just not good. You can tell that they don't have good intentions. So yes, just wanted to put that on the table.
No, that's great, because that's something that's really important for us to prioritize your safety. You know, and like you said, you don't owe anybody anything. Anybody, even if it's your mother, you don't owe her anything. You know, I mean, love your mother, you know, awesome, yes, but you know, you don't belong to anybody. Nobody owns your life, and you really need to take care of yourself, especially when it comes to your safety. You know, definitely need to put yourself in the front seat on that one and say, any kind of feeling of like, I don't know about that, follow that feeling. Embrace that feeling of this just doesn't feel right. Embrace your gut feelings, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, another thing too, maybe we can add is, where are you thinking from? Right? So a gut feeling is here, it's your core. It's this major part of your body that's like here, you know, like if you ever felt like nauseous for any reason, you know, like from an energetic experience, you know what I mean? Your gut is telling you something. That's something that's trustworthy. Your mind and your thoughts, not so much. Because your mind and your thoughts is where all the trouble is, right? It's where all the illusions are. It's all that stuff's gonna, so
you can feel it in your body.
You can feel
There's physical sensations that arise.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, and noticing where your feelings might be coming from. Like I know when I'm doing the dishes for my mom when she's tired, you know what I mean? I feel my heart. I really feel my heart, you know, when I'm doing something like that. And similarly, when I'm in a situation where, you know, there's something feels unsafe, I can feel that in my gut, you know what I mean? And I know that when I'm feeling fear, I know it's in my head a lot of the time. Sometimes fear is necessary and it's in the gut too, but a lot of times the irrational fears are you'll notice it's in your head. It's in it's in this whole package of thought.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's a good one right
Yes,
there. That's a good
very
tune.
good.
Tune in with the body, listening to the body too. And it's funny because any of these conversations that we have, they kind of all seem to come down to one thing: awareness. Like passive awareness.
Right.
An open, empty awareness. You know,
And neutral awareness.
a neutral awareness. Yeah, just clear perception.
Because once you build that awareness, this is where all kind of the conscious aware or conscious choices come from.
Yeah.
Because now you can choose how to respond. You can choose, what you want, your boundaries.
Choose what thoughts to believe in. You know,
your habits.
you can just see everything for what it is. So I think that's a big takeaway from this, and this is probably going to be a common theme for everything we talk about.
But it's good to keep on talking about it.
Definitely, and relating it to different scenarios.
It's a simple concept, and it's so important. Bringing awareness to each moment, so that you can truly live in the moment, and appreciate it fully.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you.
I honor you, I respect you. Thank you for your wisdom and your insight. And thanks for listening. I hope this helps. I hope this brings you to a place of wholeness inside, that you can learn to trust yourself and trust your intuition and tap into the world that's around you. Namaste.
Thank you. Blessings.